You're watching Euronews Tonight. Here are our top stories. Europe's coronavirus death toll is on course to pass 2 million by March, the WHO warns, as a deadly COVID wave continues to sweep the continent. North Macedonia declares 3 days of national mourning after a bus crash in Bulgaria kills at least 45 people, including 12 children. He's accused of mass murder and war crimes, but ex-Iranian official Hamid Nuri slams the charges as lies as he takes the stand in Stockholm.
And several Hungarian media organisations have defied a controversial law by publishing an LGBT educational campaign.
Hello and welcome to the programme. The World Health Organization says Europe has missed the boat in preventing a fourth wave of COVID-19 and is now facing an extra 700,000 deaths by March 1st. That would push the death toll for the continent to over 2 million people. The WHO says if Europe fails to contain rising infection numbers, health systems across the continent will come under high and extreme stress. It says the Delta variant, unvaccinated people and waning immunity are driving the surge. It's urged countries to get people fully vaccinated and offer boosters to those who need it, as well as the following strict hygiene guidelines. The European Commission has released eye-opening data that suggests a higher vaccination rate against COVID-19 equates to a lower number of deaths caused by the virus. In Ireland, with 93% of the adult population fully vaccinated, its death rate over a 2-week period is 15 per 1 million of the population, while Bulgaria, with a vaccine uptake of just 29%, has recorded 325 deaths per 1 million of population. Following Monday's national lockdown, Austrian health officials say there's been a surge in vaccine uptake. Austria is the first European country to make vaccines mandatory, and just over 65% of the adult population have been double jabbed. One Vienna vaccine centre said the number of first doses administered this week has risen by 10 to 15%.
The vaccination rate has increased here in this centre and across Vienna, but also in all of Austria. 2 weeks ago, we had around 1,000 vaccinations per day here in the Austria centre. Right now, we have reached 12 to 13,000 daily vaccinations in this centre alone. But we're also noticing a clear increase in vaccinations in all other areas, like our mobile vaccination booths and vaccination buses.
Let's cross over to Strasbourg to speak to our correspondent there, Shona Murray. Shona, good to see you. The WHO says Europe's COVID death toll is likely to pass 2 million by March. Epidemiologists saying there's a clear link between rising case numbers and low vaccination rates. What's the level of concern where you are right now?
Oh, that's right, Paul. When we saw those statistics that you mentioned there in relation to the correlation between countries with high levels of vaccination and fewer deaths, and then the opposite in the fact in countries like Bulgaria with 29% vaccinated and well over 300 deaths per 1 million. I'm joined now by Peter Liese, who's a German MEP. Peter, you're on the Health Committee. I mean, OK, first and foremost, how do we get the rest of Europe vaccinated? There's a supply there, but countries like Bulgaria with 29% vaccinated, Austria 64%, and parts of Germany not that well vaccinated.
Yeah, this is unfortunately true. This is also our biggest problem. There are other problems. The protection rate of the vaccine goes down, and we have the Delta variant. So also twice vaccinated people should be careful. But it's very clear in my country, Germany, the regions where we have a high vaccination are much better off. And that's also true for Europe. So I think it's important, of course, to continue to speak, to explain people, to take their concerns seriously. But we also need to go a step further. I think we need to have much more use of the certificate. And people that decide not to be vaccinated cannot get the same rights and freedoms than others because they are a serious threat to our healthcare system, and that needs to be implemented much stronger all over Europe.
I mean, your own health minister, Jens Spahn, had some very stark words yesterday that people in Germany are either going to be recovering, vaccinated or dead. I mean, do you think that was a bit harsh, or is that the scenario we're seeing now because of Delta?
It was exaggerated because by reasons we somehow don't know, even people that have close contact to somebody that is infected don't infect themselves. That's always a question of coincidence and factors that we don't know. But there's a serious risk, and I would advise everybody to be vaccinated because the risk of being seriously infected is very high. So exaggerated, but not completely wrong.
I mean, you're obviously a medical doctor by profession. We heard from the head of AstraZeneca today that said that Europe is facing the wave it is because many member states dropped the use of AstraZeneca. Does that ring true for you, from what you know about the vaccines?
Unfortunately, I have to say that's again another nonsense from the head of AstraZeneca, because we have enough other vaccine. mRNA vaccine is available. And unfortunately, we see now that the problem that I described, that the protection is going down after some months, is more serious in AstraZeneca than in the other vaccines. So I would now recommend people to get the mRNA vaccine or the combination. First dose AstraZeneca, second dose mRNA vaccine. But the problem we have is definitely not linked to the non-use of AstraZeneca, definitely not.
Okay, Peter Liese, thank you very much for joining us. And back to you in studio, Paul.
Many thanks, Shona. With Christmas just around the corner, Austrian businesses are warning of the economic hit the national lockdown will have. Let's speak to Rainer Will, CEO of the Austrian Retail Association. Many thanks for taking the time to speak to us. Considering the current COVID situation in Austria, did the government have any other choice than to lock down?
There are always different choices, and the biggest problem was that the political leaders missed out to set up a vaccine campaign during the summer. The Austrian Retail Association set it up, but without public funds, it was not possible to reach everybody. And moreover, the opposition party, which is the biggest one, is a vaccination opponent, and therefore it was hard. And now we had to really set up hard measures, and the obligation and also the obligation for the vaccine is one of that measure, and the second is the hard lockdown. And Austria is also the first country in Western Europe who sets up a hard lockdown since the vaccination was rolled out, and it's the only country where also retail businesses are affected by the lockdown.
It's a hard lockdown, as you say. Black Friday this week, pre-Christmas shopping as well. What's been the impact for your members?
It's a hard impact. We see that 2.7 billion euro will be lost alone with the retail shops, and in total we'll lose for the whole Austrian economy around 6 billion euro. So we estimate that about 10,000 retail stores are at insolvency risk, and moreover 10,000 jobs at risk. So we estimate that in the whole total of the Austrian economy, 400,000 employees will be put on short-term work. So it is mostly important that we know that quick help is good help, and therefore it has to be unbureaucratic and fast, that all these small and medium enterprises will still be saved, in short time.
So is the government doing enough in your view?
In my view, it has to be more. It has to be more precisely to not support businesses which got reduced or shut down already, because there is a measure comparison to 2019 pre-corona time, and therefore some businesses grew also within the pandemic, and therefore it is mostly important to target the right measures to the companies with the most jobs, and therefore there's much more to do, and it is not yet done.
Rainer Will, a CEO of the Austrian Retail Association, many thanks for your time. North Macedonia has declared 3 days of mourning due to the bus accident which killed at least 45 passengers, including 12 children, in western Bulgaria. The Skopje-bound bus was carrying tourists returning from a trip to Turkey. 7 people survived and have been taken to hospitals with burns. The North Macedonian Prime Minister said an investigation into the causes of the crash is underway.
I will leave it to the Bulgarian experts to investigate and analyze what's the reason behind this tragedy. And those who survived have their own memories of what happened.
The only thing we can do now is to say sorry for the losses and for the grief of the families who lost their relatives. Bulgaria is working hard with all institutions responsible for the investigation.
Now, a number of media organisations in Hungary have defied a controversial law banning the portrayal of homosexuality to children. TV channels and magazines have joined an LGBT campaign under the hashtag #TheSame. Matthew in the Cube has the story.
Well, Paul, this campaign was launched last week in collaboration with International Children's Rights Days by an NGO known as the Foundation for Freedom Families. This campaign essentially features a short video featuring 2 talkative puppets under the hashtag Ugyanaz, literally translating as #TheSame. Organisers say they hope this campaign will promote the discrimination that LGBT families and their children are facing in Hungary and raise awareness for this. For example, you have a country where gay marriage is not recognised and adoption rights are not allowed for same-sex couples. Now, in June, Hungarian MPs also passed a controversial law banning the portrayal of homosexuality and gender reassignment to anyone aged under 18. Essentially, companies and media organisations could face fines if they were deemed to promote LGBT content to children. So this bill seemingly outlaws that #TheSame campaign that was launched last week. But despite the threat of fines, a number of organisations and media groups have said they will be sharing it. According to the organisation, more than 200 posters, some on billboards like this one or in magazines, will be featured. And a number of major television companies, the likes of MTV, Comedy Central and the Paramount Network, have all said that they will feature that social media video. This is the latest development in a long-running dispute in the EU when it comes to anti-LGBT policies in Hungary. For example, the European Commission said after that law that was launched in Hungary that it would be investigating the country. This after Ursula von der Leyen described that bill as a shame. Now, the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán and his ruling Conservative Fidesz party have said that that law was meant to tackle paedophilia, and he says that they will hold a referendum on the law. But this is certainly a long-running dispute, Paul, and you can certainly see with that #TheSame campaign, organisers are still trying to raise awareness about the LGBT community in Hungary, despite the threat and the bans from authorities.
Matthew, many thanks for that. Still to come, what now for farming in the EU after MEPs finally agreed to reform the bloc's common agricultural policy? You're watching Euronews Tonight. A very warm welcome back to the programme. Hamid Nuri, who's accused of murder, crimes against humanity and war crimes, has told a Swedish court that the accusations against him are lies. The charges relate to his job as an assistant to the deputy prosecutor of a prison near Tehran in the 1980s. He's said to have taken prisoners to death chambers, but Nuri rejects the charges. Human rights groups claim about 5,000 prisoners were killed under the orders of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khomeini at the end of the Iran-Iraq war between 1980 and 1988. Let's speak to our reporter, Per Bergsfors-Nyberg, who's in Stockholm for us. Per, great to see you. A large crowd of protesters gathered outside court today. Why were they there?
Well, hi, good evening, Paul. Basically, there were quite a lot of people here, several hundred people, in fact, who gathered here outside the Stockholm District Court just behind me. And basically, I met people from Switzerland, from France, from Albania. They traveled from all over Europe to be here today for the first day of Hamid Nuri's testimony. And basically, they told me that they want to be a voice for the voiceless. I met one woman from a victims organization saying this was a historic day. I also met a really young girl who told me that her father was imprisoned imprisoned back in 1988. He was in fact tortured in prison, and some of his cellmates, the other prisoners there at the prison, were executed. Here's what they told me.
When I have been inside and seen him, and when I hear his voice, it's really painful because he have been hurting my dad and my dad's friends that I have seen in front of me. That just makes me so, I don't know, I feel so weak and so powerless to not be able to do something when he's standing in front of us.
For me personally, it's a really emotional feeling also to be here, to stand here, where history is written.
It means that the people of Iran and the resistance will not give up until they bring all the masterminds of this crime against humanity and genocide to justice. I think what has happened is that the people of the world are now seeing what happened in Iran. And one has to bear in mind the 1988 massacre and the crime against humanity has continued ever since.
And as you can tell, these people, they don't only blame Mohammed Nuri for these mass executions. In fact, they blame the very top political sphere in Iran, the people at the very top, the people at the power, at the helm of Iran's government.
And Per, Mohammed Nuri took the stand earlier today. What did he have to say?
Well, Paul, basically, he took the stand here inside Stockholm's district court, where they even have a mock-up of the prison and a little paper note that says execution chamber, pointing to a specific room. However, Mohammed Nuri, he says that these accusations, they're just a work of fiction. He's just a family father, deeply devoted Shia Muslim, civil servant who's trying to help everyone. He also went on to say that the people who've been testifying here in court, they haven't just insulted him, they've insulted the state of Iran, the Iranian people. So he went on to defend Ahmadinejad. He went on to defend Raisi, the current president, who is accused of being one of the 4 people at the helm of this death squad. He also went on to defend Khomeini. So he says that all these accusations are just basically false, Paul.
Per, many thanks for that update. Per Bergsvår Nyberg there, reporting for us from Stockholm. The European Parliament has given the green light to controversial reforms of the Common Agricultural Policy. The changes, which have an impact on a budget worth more than 380 billion euros, are designed to help tackle climate change. But environmentalists say it is a case of greenwashing. Christopher Pitchers reports.
After years of negotiations, MEPs have finally approved reforms to the EU's Common Agricultural Policy. This latest round of changes is intended to be more climate-friendly and fairer to small farms and young farmers. But for Thijs Bullens, a 30-year-old farmer who runs an organic farm, the reforms mean nothing to him.
Once again, we get nothing. This cap reform makes the big farmers just bigger than before. We are giving money to the rich with this cap. I don't know if the people of the European Union understands this. We are giving public money to people who already have a lot of money.
Thijs and his partners produce around 60 kinds of vegetables, but they only receive roughly 2,500 euros per year in European aid. Anna, a Belgian producer, deplores the difficulties faced by new, younger farmers.
For young people like us, it's already very difficult to set up. We don't have any land, we don't have a farmhouse, we don't have any buildings. We work with plastic tents, we build our own sheds with containers. We do what we can. It's fine sometimes, but in fact, I think we'd prefer to work in barns with things like smooth concrete, for example.
For the representatives of the main agricultural organisations and cooperatives, it's time to move forward. CAP reform negotiations opened in 2018 and they say must now come to an end.
Well, it's never enough. If you ask any stakeholder group, we all have our ambitions, but this is about the compromise that now has been reached. We do not get everything for European agriculture. It's a compromise that we have to live with. However, we consider this is a good compromise where most of the objectives have been addressed and we are committed to it.
Many MEPs have been vocal in their criticism of the latest CAP reforms. But for one of the main legislators on the issue, the changes bring a level of certainty.
For the first time since the beginning of the CAP reform, we will have more regulation than deregulation, and the pandemic has shown us once again that markets, and in particular agricultural markets, are structurally unstable. And when you have unstable markets, you need regulation and crisis management tools to guarantee farmers' incomes.
The cap represents around a third of the European budget, at nearly 400 billion euros. The latest reforms will come into force in 2023. Crystal Pictures Euronews, Brussels.
Still to come, it's been a hit in France and for international audiences on Netflix. Now comedy Call My Agent has taken Hollywood by storm. More after the break. Welcome back to the programme. It was first shown here in France, but has since gone on to be a huge hit on Netflix. And now the series Call My Agent has been recognised by Hollywood. Judith Prescott has more.
It was a hit on streaming giant Netflix, and now the French series 10%, renamed Call My Agent for the English-speaking public, has won an international Emmy Award for Best Comedy. The series tracks the events of the fictional ASK agency and features a host of real-life famous faces such as Charlotte Gainsbourg and Isabelle Huppert as their clients. The writers and producers of the series were in New York for the ceremony.
We didn't even think it would be a national success, honestly. Often people told us, but it won't interest many people. It's about a small Parisian elite, a small world. How can it be universal? And that is also a source of great pride. It's that, through this small world, we still have managed to discover themes that I get the impression speak to a lot of people.
The series has received worldwide acclaim, with adaptations currently being prepared in Turkey, South Korea, India and the UK, featuring their own homegrown stars.
We leave you with a no comment from the Catalonian National Museum in Barcelona, where over 650 pieces of Antonio Gaudi's work have gone on display. Thanks for watching Euronews Tonight.